Good morning, YouTube. So I wanted to build on some of the videos that I put out recently where I was discussing the toxic ranger tabbed culture within officers specifically. But for this video, I wanted to actually delve into some of the differences that I witnessed, and this is my personal experience, between what I saw on the officer side versus the NCOs. Now let's dig right into this. So first off, I wanted to let people know, if you didn't see my other videos, check those out. It might give you a bit more context in case you're just not tracking at all what I'm talking about. But I was serving at Fort Hood. So I think it's Fort Cavazos now. Now keep that in mind. If you're at a different base like Fort Bragg or Fort Campbell, your experiences certainly could be drastically different. At Fort Hood, you know, certainly many of the officers in the infantry were definitely tabbed. That culture was definitely there, as I've talked about in my other videos. But on the NCO side, there definitely was not nearly as many NCOs with ranger tabs at Fort Hood, again. And I think a lot of that also comes down to the fact that Fort Hood just doesn't send as many people to Ranger School. I'm sure there's other reasons as well. But regardless, I did have some interactions with NCOs with Ranger tabs in my unit. One of them was a corporal. I definitely didn't have as many interactions with him. All I will say is that he seemed like a standout soldier. Didn't know him too well. Don't have anything bad to say about him. I wanted to focus more, though, on my interactions that I did have with two specific kind of higher ranking NCOs. So the first would have been a sergeant first class. He was the platoon sergeant for the recon platoon in our unit at Fort Hood. Now I will say this too. I don't want to get too into the platoon leader there, because I have other stories to share about that. But he was the platoon sergeant for the recon platoon, and I had drastically different interactions with not only a lot of the other officers in the unit with ranger tabs, but specifically with the platoon leader that worked closely with him. That's for another day. But this particular sergeant first class, I had positive interactions with him. Anytime that I had to work with his unit, whether it was a training exercise and I was somehow working with him, I had different positions. I mean, I ultimately served as the logistics officer in the battalion, and I had to do different things in terms of like accountability of items, inventory of a lot of equipment, things like that. So those were probably my primary interactions with this sergeant first class, in addition to training, operations, different things. I had nothing but positive experiences with the sergeant first class, who was the platoon sergeant of that unit. He definitely seemed like a very good person from everything that I saw from my personal experience. He never treated me with anything but respect, even though it was very clear that I did not have a ranger tab. So I kind of just wanted to highlight that, because I know I've talked a lot about the toxic culture within officers, and I understand that some people might tune in here and say that, well, I've seen the exact same thing with NCOs. But I wanted to just rehash the idea that I'm putting out my personal experiences, and because my personal experiences did show me that there was a very elitist and very toxic culture within Army infantry officers specifically, I wanted to highlight some of my personal positive experiences with NCOs. And again, they are limited. There was not nearly as many NCOs that had tabs in our unit, but there were some, and they were virtually all positive as far as I remember. The other one that I wanted to highlight, so I would have served with several CSMs over my time at Fort Hood. There was only one command sergeant major that I would have served with that had a ranger tab. And again, just like I was talking about with the platoon sergeant, this command sergeant major never treated me with anything but respect. I believe that during the time that I would have served with him, I believe that I served in both the S3 shop, I believe I was actually a platoon leader for portions of that. There might have been another CSM that was serving while I was the logistics officer. But regardless, had nothing but positive experiences with this command sergeant major. He always treated me with respect. I never once questioned whether he was just gonna like demean me for absolutely no reason, or the fact that I didn't have a ranger tab. He just never did any of that. Like, he just seemed to treat me and the other people, whether they had tabs or non-tabs, with respect, and I still have respect for him. I mean, I haven't kept in contact with him or anything like that, but my memories of this command sergeant major were positive, just like my memories of the platoon sergeant for the recon platoon. So this is a quick video. I just wanted to highlight that, because I know I've put out a lot of things, and I'm sure some people think, oh, he's only going to talk about negative interactions. Spoiler alert, I'm actually going to drop another video very soon talking about some very positive interactions that I've had with several officers that had ranger tabs as well. But I just wanted to make this video to highlight that overall my experiences were still drastically different. If I was to speak more generally about officers versus NCOs, I had much better interactions overall with NCOs. So if you enjoyed this video at all, if you got any value out of this, please consider subscribing for more, and I'll catch you on the next.